Okay, so get this right. We're talking bubbles today.
Okay.
But not just your average, everyday bubbles. No. They are
Nice.
nano-sized bubbles.
Yeah.
We're talking smaller than a wavelength of light. That's how tiny these things are.
Wow.
And you know what's even wilder? These little bubbles, they're not just for science projects anymore. They could actually revolutionize, like, everything. How we grow food, how we clean up the planet, all sorts of stuff. You were really interested in Gaia water, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
They're doing some really interesting work with this nanobubble tech, so that's what we're diving deep into today.
It's about time they're doing some really groundbreaking stuff.
I know, right? So let's break this down.
Okay.
For those of us who haven't encountered these, like, super-powered bubbles before,
Yeah.
what exactly are we dealing with here?
So imagine a bubble so small you can barely even see it, even under a microscope.
Okay.
And this tiny bubble is carrying a little package, like a little gas canister, filled with something like oxygen or CO2.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. It can hold onto that gas for weeks, even months.
Wait, seriously? These things are like nano-sized gas tanks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what makes them so special. Their size gives them this amazing staying power, and that's the key to why they have so much potential in so many different fields.
Okay, I'm picturing, like, microscopic submarines zipping around with these tiny little payloads.
Yeah.
But how does that actually translate into real-world applications?
Think about it.
Hmm.
You've got this incredibly small bubble, right?
Right.
But it has a huge surface area compared to its volume. It's like having a whole fleet of those delivery trucks instead of just one little scooter. They can transfer gases way more efficiently than regular bubbles, which opens up a ton of possibilities.
So it's all about maximizing contact, like a microscopic handshake that packs a punch. I'm starting to see why Gaia Water is so gung-ho about these things.
Precisely. And one of the areas where they see the biggest potential is agriculture. Gaia Water talks a lot about the importance of oxygen for plant growth.
Right. I mean, I know plants need air to breathe, but I've never really thought about what's happening underground.
That's the thing. It all comes down to the roots.
The roots.
Yeah, just like us, they need oxygen to thrive.
Okay.
But in soil that's too wet, or places where there just isn't enough oxygen available, the plant roots, they struggle to get what they need. That's where nanobubbles come in.
So it's like giving the roots a direct oxygen boost.
Exactly.
I can see how that would be huge for farmers.
Imagine these nanobubbles acting like tiny little oxygen tanks, clinging to the roots, providing a constant supply of what those plants need to breathe and absorb nutrients more effectively.
Wow.
This translates to stronger plants, bigger yields, and more efficient use of resources. It's a win-win-win, especially as we face more and more food security challenges globally.
So you're saying that by giving these tiny bubbles a little oxygen boost, we could potentially grow more food with less water and fewer resources.
Yeah.
Talk about punching above your weight class. What does this look like in practice, though?
Well, Gaia Water's actually done some fascinating research on this, using their nanobubble technology to grow strawberries in, get this, saline water.
Hold on, saltwater strawberries.
I know, right? Sounds crazy.
That doesn't seem possible.
It's not, usually. But by enriching the irrigation water with these oxygen nanobubbles, they were able to help the plants deal with the stress of that salty environment.
That's incredible. So we're not just talking about boosting yields in ideal conditions. We're talking about growing food in places we never thought possible. That has huge implications, especially as climate change impacts agriculture all over the world.
Exactly. And the best part is, it's not just limited to land-based farming either. This nanobubble technology is making waves in aquaculture as well.
Fish farming. Okay, now that's not something I pictured before. How do these little bubbles help fish thrive in those environments?
Well, think about a typical fish farm. You've got all these fish packed pretty tightly, and they need that oxygen.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can't you just, like, pump air into the water? Why even bother with the nanobubbles?
You can, but it's just not as efficient. It's kind of wasteful.
Okay.
Remember those tiny bubbles we talked about, the ones that are so stable?
Yeah.
They're like the perfect little oxygen delivery system for fish tanks or any aquatic environment, really.
Right.
Those nanobubbles, they hold on to the oxygen so much longer, and they can deliver it way better than just, bubbling air through the water.
So it's about getting the oxygen right where it needs to go instead of it just escaping at the surface.
Well, exactly.
Clever. But Gaia Water doesn't just stop at farms and fish, do they?
Yep, not even close.
They're talking about using nanobubbles for cleaning up oil spills, which seems like kind of a big jump from growing strawberries.
It might seem like a stretch, but it's all based on the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
Using those nanobubbles to deliver the right gas, whether it's oxygen or something else.
Okay, so what gas are we talking about for cleaning up oil?
In this case, CO2 nanobubbles.
CO2 for cleaning. Isn't that like what makes my soda fizzy?
It is, but it's also a powerful cleaning agent when it's in nanobubble form.
Okay, I'll bite. How does that work?
Remember how we talked about those nanobubbles having a huge surface area for their size?
Yeah.
Well, imagine those minuscule bubbles all loaded up with CO2,
Yeah.
and they come into contact with dirt or grime or even oil.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
And they basically act like microscopic magnets. They attach themselves to the grime and break it down at a molecular level.
So instead of wiping the dirt away, we're using bubbles to dismantle it.
You got it. And because those CO2 nanobubbles are so tiny, they can really get into those nooks and crannies that you can't reach with normal cleaning methods. Gaia Water says they've even cleaned years of grime off a cargo ship hull using this technology.
Okay, now that's impressive. But what about the environmental impact? Is CO2 cleaning actually better for the environment?
That's the best part. CO2 is a naturally occurring gas, unlike a lot of those harsh chemicals we use for cleaning, especially industrial cleaning.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a much more sustainable and eco-friendly option, which is a big deal.
So from helping plants breathe to giving cargo ships a spa day, these nanobubbles really can do it all. But Gaia Water's ambitions don't stop there, do they? I mean, they're talking about using this technology in heavy industries like oil and gas, which seems like even more of a leap.
It does, but they're finding ways to make it work.
So how do these tiny bubbles fit into that picture?
It's all about finding those surprising applications. Oil and gas, it's not exactly the first thing that comes to mind when you think tiny bubbles.
You're telling me. I'm having a hard time picturing it myself. It doesn't exactly scream eco-friendly, you know?
Right, but that's where the innovation comes in. One of the biggest challenges in oil and gas is separating the oil and water, right?
Yeah, and I'm guessing that process isn't exactly known for being environmentally friendly.
Not exactly. They often use some pretty nasty chemicals, which isn't good for the environment. But now imagine if you could make that separation process more efficient and get rid of those harsh chemicals.
Okay, and that's where our tiny bubble friends come in.
Exactly. Gaia Water is looking at injecting specific types of nanobubbles into the mix to basically help separate the oil and water more effectively.
So it's like what? Giving these industries a gentler, more sustainable toolkit, using these microscopic bubbles to deal with these big, messy problems.
Precisely. And it's not just about separation. They're even exploring using nanobubbles to clean up contaminated soil and improve water recycling in these industries.
Wow. It's amazing to think we could be on the verge of this nanobubble revolution, changing everything from how we grow our food to how we clean up after these heavy industries. But like anything new, there have to be some downsides, right? What are we not thinking about?
Well, it's still early days, you know. Producing nanobubbles on a large scale, it can be expensive, and we need more research to make it more efficient and affordable if we want to see it everywhere.
Cost is always a factor. And then it sounds like we're still in the early stages of understanding these tiny bubbles and their full impact.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder that even when something seems really promising, we need to be thoughtful about how we use it.
Well, this has been quite a journey. We started with a tiny bubble and ended up talking about some of the biggest challenges facing the planet.
It's incredible what a little curiosity can lead to.
That's for sure. For our listeners who want to learn more about this, keep an eye on Gaia Water and the fascinating world of nanobubbles. The future might be a bit bubblier than we thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.